we must step up as leaders in desperate need of healing and repair to begin to have the difficult conversations about a future.
Nigeria expresses readiness to become global hub for manufacturing of vaccines and pharmaceuticals.
Determine the current number categories of Nigeria's diplomatic missions, identify and categorize the revenue generation capacity of missions.
Government inaugurates committee to review strategy for resourcing Nigeria's foreign missions.
Federal High Court nullifies primaries of the All Progressives Congress in Rivers State.
Hello, good morning, Nigeria. Today we shall focus on the ravaging floods in states of the Federation.
President Muhammadu Buhari on Monday issued a 90-day ultimatum to Minister of Water Resources Suleiman Adamu to liaise with the Ministries of Environment and Transportation to develop an action plan for flood prevention.
Now, this directive is coming amid the current devastating floods in various parts of the country. And according to reports, only about 3 states and perhaps the Federal Capital Territory have been spared of the impact of the flooding, with Benue, Kogi, Bayelsa, Delta, Anambra, Jigawa, Rivers, and Kano being the worst hit.
In fact, the 2022 flooding is said to be the worst in decades, with over 600 deaths recorded and nearly 1.3 million people rendered homeless. Records also indicate that the ravage has left many farmlands submerged and desolate, with experts describing it as the worst spin-off of climate change Nigeria has ever witnessed since 2012. And Kingsley, if you recall, in 2012, the flooding began in July, and of course about 363 people died in that encounter, and today we're talking about 600, almost double that number.
In fact, the latest figure coming from the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry is that there have been at least 612 persons who have died from this year's floods in Nigeria. Now, perennial flooding in the country is becoming, as it were, a recurring decimal. And of course, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, NISA, as well as the National Emergency Management Agency, had earlier warned that flooding would occur in several states across the Federation, and the volume of water would increase due to, one, excessive rainfalls and contributions from external flows, such as the Lagdo Dam in Cameroon.
And despite their warnings, nothing concrete was done by some subnationals to cushion the effects of the unprecedented flood. For the past few weeks, residents in some of the worst hit states have been living in dire conditions across some informal camps with little or no hope for survival, while starvation also stares in their faces.
It's indeed a struggle that they have not only contaminated water to contend with, but also there's the increased difficulty of traveling across the states and even receiving humanitarian aid in order to alleviate their sufferings.
Now, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization says there is increased risk of disease outbreaks such as cholera, with other experts stressing that Nigeria faces worsening fears of disruption of food supply in addition to crude oil contamination.
Well, we earlier had a report about the force majeure declared by the LNG in Bonny on account of the shortings of production arising from the flooding in the Niger Delta area. The Honorable Minister of Water Resources during his 2023 budget defense said that contrary to widely held beliefs, the Lagdo Dam in Cameroon was not responsible for the flooding currently ravaging many parts of the country. but rather the minister identified the tributaries of the River Benue as one of the causes.
Now, the realities are on ground, and this leaves much to be desired, but authorities are even warning of more devastation in the coming days. Now, while Nigerians await the outcome of the action plan as directed by President Muhammadu Buhari to the ministers, what are states doing in the interim to further avert impending danger, and how many times must we sail in these floods before we learn our lessons? This is our focus as we highlight ravaging floods in states with our array of guests. I am Kirian Umayo, welcoming to this Wednesday's edition of the program. Good morning, Nigeria.
Well, Lagos State government on Monday this week issued a fresh update to all waterfront residents, including those of Ikoyi, Lekki, and Victoria Island, as well as other coastal areas of Ekpe and Badagry, to be wary of backflow due to the high tide on the Lagos Lagoon. Now, experts caution against creating panic, but of course, one cannot overemphasize the fact that experience, the saying goes, is the best teacher. So there are all kinds of alerts that have been issued. In fact, not just to the highbrow areas of Lagos that I just mentioned. There are other parts of Lagos, including Ikorodu, Owodo, Omiri, Mile 12. This is on account of what we said to be the release of water from the Ogun Dam.
The city underwater, actually underwater. So,
well, that's right. Parts of Lagos are below sea level. I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Kieran to also welcome you to our live program on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, in the course of which we have our regular complimentary segments. And those include newspaper review and business. The highlights of the news now with Musbao Dan Wahab. Good morning, Musbao.
Very good morning, Kingsley and Kieran. Here is the news. Nigeria is ready to become a global hub for sustainable manufacturing and distribution of vaccine and biological pharmaceuticals in support of far-reaching measures towards keeping all of mankind safe. Speaking at the first World Bio Summit in Seoul, South Korea, President Muhammadu Buhari, however, made a case for speedy takeoff of the mRNA vaccine technology project, which he described as critical to global health security.
We must step up as leaders in desperate need of healing and repair to begin to have the difficult conversations about a future which we must be better prepared for in order to avoid further devastation to our lives.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has attributed the devastating effect of flooding being experienced in parts of the country this year to the negative fallout of climate change. This was while granting audience to the former United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon on the sidelines of the first World Bio Summit in Seoul, South Korea. Nigeria's government has inaugurated a 13-man presidential committee to review the number strategy for resourcing Nigeria's foreign mission. Secretary to the government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, charged the committee to also ascertain the level of indebtedness or resourcefulness of the nation's diplomatic missions abroad.
Identify and categorize the revenue generation capacity of missions, identify cost-cutting measures and other steps that need to be taken to drastically reduce costs of running Nigeria's foreign missions, review human resource management systems and practices in Nigeria's foreign service, and make appropriate recommendations on how to improve it in a sustainable manner.
On electoral matters, INEC has released timetable for conduct of Bayelsa, Imo, and Kogi State governorship elections. The three elections will hold on 11th of November 2023. Conduct of party primaries starts from 27th of March to 17th of April, while campaigns commence on the 14th of June 2023. The date for the conduct of the elections was taken after a meeting by the electoral management body on Tuesday, 25th of October. A Federal High Court sitting in Port Harcourt has nullified the primaries of the All Progressives Congress (APC) in Rivers State. The presiding judge, Justice Emmanuel Obile, gave the order in a matter filed by the aggrieved members of the party who were shut out of the primaries unlawfully. The court held that with the unlawful exclusion of the aggrieved members, the process amounted to nullity. In the suit, Judge Olu and 4 others who claimed to have purchased nomination forms had approached the court requesting that the primaries of the APC in the state be nullified following the alleged exclusion in the process. Meanwhile, the All Progressives Congress (APC) Rivers State chapter says the pre-election matter leading to the nullification of the congresses of the party in the state is an internal affair of the party. Rivers APC spokesperson Darlington Nwauju stated this in a reaction to the Federal High Court's verdict nullifying the primaries of the APC in the state. Relying on the Supreme Court's verdict, the APC Rivers State maintained that political parties can regulate their own internal affairs. He added that the subject matter for which Justice Emmanuel Obile granted the relief of plaintiffs to nullify the congresses of the party is entirely an internal party affairs. Therefore, it is a travesty of justice as far as the party is concerned. Darlington Nwauju says the party will appeal the verdict. Nigeria and the International Fund for Agricultural Development (IFAD) have agreed to work together for the success of the special agro-processing zones. This was during a bilateral talk between the Minister of Agriculture and Vice President of IFAD in Abuja.
I look forward to our deliberation to help us identify best ways to scaling up the impact of 4P partnership for farmers and agro-entrepreneurs, for business, for rural development.
We can continue to build the present and the future of food security in the SAPZ project.
The federal government has assured that Nigeria's security agencies are doing everything possible to secure and protect Nigerians and foreigners living in the country. Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed gave the assurance during a ministerial session at the ongoing UNESCO Global Media and Information Literacy Week holding in Abuja.
Our third agencies are very proactive. Terrorists have been hard hit and put on the run. The bandits have been decimated and scattered. Our country is safer today than at any time in recent times.
That's a bit of the news this morning. Certainly we have more for you in the course of the day. The program will continue shortly with Kieran Kingsley, but I thought Kingsley was going to inform of us how the almighty Real Madrid lost last night in the Champions League. Kingsley, you forgot to tell us.
Well, I was going to say that myself, but somehow I said, let me just keep quiet. I mean, let me just stay off anything this morning. But I never believe Madrid could lose, fatally the way they did yesterday.
Anyway, they're still sitting top of the group log, but it was not expected that Leipzig would take them to the cleaners just like that.
Well, I think that probably you have no proper history to...
We're not talking of history. We're talking of both.
Just hold on a second. You asked a question, I'm responding. Before that match, Real Madrid had already qualified for the knockout stages.
So it was a giveaway.
It was a formality. And if you saw a good many of their key players, Benzema, of course, is out injured. Valverde is also out injured. Modric is also out injured. So they played at a much lower capacity than they ordinarily would have. Well, taking somebody to the cleaners. Hold on a second. Taking somebody to the cleaners or taking a team to the cleaners is an inappropriate way of describing the scoreline of 3-2.
Oh, okay. Surrender, Musbao. Surrender.
Well,
Okay.
I would not, because with or without Benzema, Real Madrid is still Real Madrid.
Okay.
All right, we call for a break. The program continues in just a moment. Stay with us.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Experts are apprehensive as household kerosene is said to be going out of the reach of the average purchaser, with the price of the commodity rising by well over 110% in the last 12 months. We have details of that story with our correspondent, Alika Opanachi Arwa.
Based on the National Household Kerosene Report of the National Bureau of Statistics for September 2022, the average retail price per litre of the kerosene rose by 118% of 947 naira from 434 naira recorded in September 2021. According to the report, the average retail price per litre of household kerosene paid by consumers in September 2022 was 947 naira, indicating an increase of 14% compared to 809 naira recorded in August 2022. A breakdown of the report shows that on state profile analysis, the highest average price per litre in September 2022 was recorded in Enugu with 1,272 naira, followed by Ebonyi with 1,264 naira and Cross River with 1,186 naira. Speaking to some members of the public, they ground on the rising cost of the product with an appeal to the government for quick intervention.
Kerosene, no go area. Now kerosene is too cost. Even in filling station, 1 litre is 950. See this Ragolisu is 1,500. Why the small one now is 1,000 naira?
It's unbearable. Unbearable. In fact, it's even affecting us that is selling food. You understand? Something that we need to sell, maybe something like 300, 400, 700. We will get it as in higher rates. They need to do something for us by, find how they will reduce the prices up.
They should do something about it. They should do something about the increasing the price. They should know the price because it's too much. We are suffering. The price is too much for us.
With business news, Alika Opanachi Arwa.
Thank you, Alika, for that package. And next is newspaper review.
All right, so let's begin by taking a look at the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. Federal government dismisses U.S. security alert, says Nigeria now safer. Sacked APC directors accuse Adamu of withdrawing 3 billion naira from secret accounts. Jonathan seeks legal provisions to protect deputy governors. President, Vice President, Senate President, Speaker, CJN, that's Chief Justice of Nigeria, governors and others to enjoy pay hike. As RAMFAC, that is Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, reviews salaries of public and political office holders. Labour kicks, says it's recipe for crisis. NGF, that's Nigeria Governors Forum, welcomes proposed pay rise. It's economically irresponsible. That's according to an expert. Boko Haram kills scores of ISWAP fighters, loses 3 in a Praza battle. Fuel scarcity worsens in Lagos as filling stations shut down. Senate probes federal government's 52 billion naira public works scheme. Senate probes federal government's 52 billion naira public works scheme. Buhari blames climate change as flood kills 612, affects 3.2 million Nigerians. Kirian.
All right, now let's turn to the leadership newspaper. Above the name flag of the leadership newspaper, we begin from there. Senate to name Women's Center after Mariam Babangida. That's on page 8. Like in 2019, court nullifies all APC primaries in Rivers State. It's on page 6. And below the name flag, we have the headlines there. Power disruption looms as federal government directs Gencos to reduce generation. That's on page 7. Autumn dumps Atiku as Tinubu tackles Obaseki over breakup comment. Federal government charged U.S. Embassy UK over security alert. That's on page 4. That's in the lead story on the leadership newspaper. Federal government charged U.S. Embassy UK over security alert. It's on page 4. But there are 4 riders to that. Says its attempt to disrupt Nigeria's peace and stability. Service chiefs revive joint operations. Dismantle roadblocks, increase presence on highways, streets. UN alerts of plots to abduct humanitarian workers in Borno. All that on page 4. Now, Oshibajo Jonathan Ganduje moved to strengthen office of deputy governors. That's on page 6. CBN targets 100 cashless economy, or 100% cashless economy. That's on page 21. Now on flood, 1.4 million displaced, 612 dead, 21 states get relief materials. Details on page 10 of the leadership newspaper. Now, of course, the photo story there is that of President Muhammadu Buhari and the former UN Secretary General and Chairman of Ban Ki-moon Foundation for Better Future. Ban Ki-moon, well, of course, the meeting was in Seoul yesterday.
So we also have the Daily Sun newspaper. Daily Sun newspaper, we take a look at the earpiece, which is beside the nameplate. We want to support same faith ticket. Support groups declare. And then below that, federal government names building after the late Ikeazo SAN. Federal government names building. That's the building of the Legal Aid Council. It's been named after the late Ikeazo SAN. Fuel scarcity spreads. Transport fares soar. Abuja and Lagos paralyzed as IPMAN blames depots. Other headlines there on the front page coming while we transferred 21 justices. That's according to the appeal court. Flood. IMC and IYC accused Buhari and federal government of abandoning Niger Delta. Nigeria ready to become global vaccine production and distribution hub, that's according to President Buhari. Senate and federal government clash over multi-billion Naira employment scheme. I will resign if anyone can prove I promise to make him my successor. That's according to Wike. And then, so the battle is now getting closer home after warring on the National Front. Federal government deploys security alert by foreign embassies. 45-year virus cancers churches. That headline is also there. Tinubu, Obi and others unveil agenda for women. So those are the headlines from the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper. Kyrian, yes. We have a number of stories.
Yes, I'm interested in this one. I mean, very briefly, the Senate to rename Women's Center after Mariam Babangida. You know, we recall her days, you know, as the one of the, military president. And there was a woman, you know, who started a better life for women in Nigeria. And she did a number of programs that really, powered some women and rural women for that matter. Her focus was on rural women. So that was the very first time that the focus, was centered on rural women particularly. Right. So Mariam Babangida will go down in history, as the person that kick-started the issue of women in Nigeria, progress for women and all of that. So renaming the Women's Center after her, I mean, it's something in the right direction, addition in the right direction.
Very, very well. We have to note that Mariam Babangida was, of course, a very high-profile first lady in the history of our country. Was first lady from 19 1985 until 1993, following the June 12 crisis, when the husband stepped aside, and unfortunately she succumbed to cancer in December of 2009. But more importantly, in addition to bringing rural women to the limelight, even though there were criticisms at that time that urban women and flamboyant urban women had no business linking up with rural women, but it was critical because it was economic empowerment that needed to be done, and you had to link all that up.
Exactly.
You had to tie that up with MAMSA.
Sensitization, educating the rural women, and productivity as well.
And productivity. And then there was also DIPRI. If you remember, there was DIPRI. Yes. That was the Department of Food, Rules and Rural Infrastructure, which was part of what we are talking about today, to say with constructing the roads to the rural areas and so on and so forth. And it was during Babangida's time that the National Women's Center, right here in the Central Business District of Abuja, was built. Exactly. It was one of the earliest structures in the federal capital.
A very solid structure.
Very solid. My concern, though, is it the business of the legislature, that's to say the Senate, to be naming public buildings after individuals?
It should be the FCDA.
That's an executive function, and more particularly, it should be the business of the FCDA. So they have thrown it now into the open space. I would believe that, again, for good reason. The FCDA should take a cue from that, or of course the executive branch should take it. Otherwise, you wake up one day and the Senate is busy with naming all kinds of.
We want to talk about devolution of powers. Things that come up, because some people exceed their boundary. Perhaps because they have some authority, you exceed your boundary. But by the time we'll be able to specify all these things, we'll be able to know how to act. Because renaming, like it's a very good point to point out. Renaming shouldn't come from the National Assembly. That's
an issue. We call it legislative overreach.
Now, this headline here: Federal Government Charge U.S. Embassy UK over security alert and all of that. Well, when security alerts will come up like this, I believe that there has been some kind of intelligence. Yes, we don't know where it's coming from, the source of intelligence, as the case may be, but a situation where intelligence is shared. If there was anything, even before the publication by the UN or US, as the case may be, you should have liaised with Nigerian authorities, our own agencies, to say, look, this is what is in the offing. You have any steps to take to that, before you come to the public domain to say, look, that is security alert and all of that, and put people in fear and all. So I'm happy with the response of the federal government on this matter, because you don't ever put fears in our people, without first consulting our own agencies responsible for security to say, look, we have an information, digest it and do something with it, than telling people.
And there is no indication that they shared any such intelligence, and then the appropriate agencies declined the intelligence. And this is very crucial, Kirian, because you find that in the global north, for instance, let's say amongst the advanced world, they say they share intelligence to deal with terrorist groups, Al-Qaeda, ISIL or ISIS, or whatever, whether they're in Afghanistan, or in Syria, or Iraq, that they share intelligence in order to be able to defeat the terrorists before they strike. So if advanced countries can share intelligence amongst themselves, why can't they share such intelligence if they do have it? With Nigeria, instead of, as you have said, striking fear and panic into the populace.
I have a friend that they travel from Lagos to Abuja here to go to the embassy, to renew his visa or something. Only to get there, and he was turned down. And a lot of people may have also traveled from different parts of the country into Abuja or Lagos or elsewhere, and most embassies in Nigeria somehow yesterday closed down.
That's true. I don't know about you. I've received several messages saying, Kingsley, how are you? I hope everything is all right. And I've had to reply back to say, yes, I'm fine, I'm safe, I'm being careful. I think everybody's on the lookout and so on and so forth. But the impression is created that terrorists are about to strike anytime. And this is part of the demarketing of our country that we have seen from time to time. And unfortunately, you recall in the past, and I think they still do it, some of the countries will issue travel advisories to their citizens not to visit Nigeria or not to visit certain parts of Nigeria. Look, even in the United States, people are bleeding every day. That's mass shootings. You go to schools and people get shot, and then it's unfortunate that it just goes on and on.
So it has been said that every 10 minutes in New York, somebody is down. And you understand, every 10 minutes you know somebody is down somewhere or whatever. It may be wrong, but I mean, there's a reason why that came up in the first instance.
But the advisory remains the same. If you see something, say something. If you hear something, pass it on.
Yeah, there's the issue of salary adjustment. Please, I'm very interested in that.
That's the least thing we really trust.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, revisiting the salary structure of Senate President, Speaker, CJN, governors, all that, and all of that. They may have a pay hike. Isn't that what
That's right. To enjoy pay hike.
To enjoy pay hike. And one's also wondering whether other sections of Nigerians, you know, will benefit from this like Nigerians, you know. I mean, if the review should be upwards, I have thought it should be downwards, you know, because these are people who should also be sacrificing. But because we are talking about hunger, talking about you know, all sorts of uncertainties and what have you, and you are hiking the salaries of those who are in authority positions, who should be sacrificing. If you, I mean, under normal humanitarian circumstance, based on the level we are now, economically and otherwise,
we'll come up with thinking and talking about reducing the cost of governance and therefore crimping our recurrent expenditure so that we can have more resources for capital expenditure, and then we are thinking of raising the pay of the persons who have been identified: President, Vice President, Senate President, Speaker, CJA, governors, and others. These are political office holders. It's the business of the Revenue Mobilization and Allocation Fiscal Commission to do that, but it will be unconscionable at this material time, where we had an honorable Minister of Finance with us yesterday, and you recall what she said, that look, we're having a cost of living crisis amongst the populace, and that these are tough times. It is not in these tough times that you will now be seeking to confer, as it were, more financial benefits on a class that is already pampered.
The over pampered, you know, the taxpayers, you know, I mean, we're over pampering them. We have a lot of things they're enjoying: cars, a fleet of cars, houses, posh cars, posh homes and gardens and all of that, in a situation where...
And we had a report in our economic segment a moment ago, business and economy, the price of kerosene. People, I mean, the users of kerosene are grumbling, they are complaining, and then you are thinking also of raising the salaries. Once salaries go up, the allowances also go up. Can the economy absorb this kind of proposal? I don't think so.
Of course, and when this thing happens now, Labour will start its own to say, look, if that happens, then you have to cascade down, that down, you know, and all of that. So, well, we call it today on this segment, and thank you for watching. We'll return again tomorrow for newspaper review. For now, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll focus our attention on flooding in Nigeria and the devastating effect. Do stay with us.
It's Good Morning Nigeria. We're live on NTA's network service, broadcasting from our Abuja headquarters studios. As a prompt for our discussion, which is on the ravaging floods in the states of the Federation, let's listen to this background report by our correspondent, Joseph Otsen.
Out of control. The flood waters have washed lives, homes, businesses and farms. Authorities are reporting more than 500 deaths and about 1.4 million displaced across 33 states and the FCT for a period of 7 months. Many have lost their homes, with nearly 100,000 houses either partially or totally damaged. The flood situation is also sending warning signs to food insecurity, as about 140 hectares of farms have been destroyed in Nigeria. The flood is also towing the path of becoming the worst the country has ever witnessed in decades, with control measures seemingly overwhelmed and states looking helpless to manage the disaster.
That some special intervention funding may need to be released, Mr. President, to help assuage the challenges that our people are going through.
Yet another plan on how to support dry season farming in order to avert looming food crisis.
There is a call for synergy between the federal and state governments to provide relief items, healthcare and water treatment measures to prevent outbreak of diseases, as well as relocate displaced persons to higher and more comfortable grounds. Last month, the Federal Executive Council approved National Flood Emergency Preparedness and Response Plan for Nigeria to guide stakeholders in mitigating the impact of the flood. The President has also directed the distribution of 12,000 metric tons of food from Nigeria's reserves and other relief items to affected communities, and tasked all federal agencies dealing with rescue and disaster management to scale up response and intervention efforts to support the victims of flooding across the country. Experts blame intensified rains for rising water tables and overflow of rivers and dams in the country. On the other hand, the Minister of Water Resources Suleiman Adamu in recent reports attributed decades of neglect to construct water control infrastructure, building on waterways, and not yielding to flood warning and advisory from authorities, as human factors playing key roles. The 2022 annual flood outlook is indicating the rains will not stop soon and the flood will linger longer in many places. But the obvious indications are that both the federal and state governments were never prepared for this magnitude of flood and its effects. So, what then can be done by states to mitigate what's coming ahead and support already affected victims rebuild life again? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will give perspectives on this soon.
Thank you indeed, Joseph, for that comprehensive package. And now in the studio to discuss matters arising on this, we have Associate Professor Ishaya Sunday. Professor Ishaya Sunday is of the Department of Geography and Environmental Management, Specialization, Climate and Water Resources, University of Abuja. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, also with us here in the studio, we have Air Commodore Edward Kolawole Adeleko, Director, Search and Rescue, National Emergency Management Agency. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right.
All right, Kieran, I know that you are a science and tech buff, so you said research and the rescue of Nema, and actually research.
Research.
You said research.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Commodore Adedokun, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much.
And then joining us via Zoom from Asaba, Delta State Capital, is Zoom Eugene Azuka, is Director General of the State Orientation Bureau of Delta State. Barrister Azuka, we're glad to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much and good morning.
Okay, and also joining us from Lokoja is the state official, that's Commissioner for Environment, that's Honorable Victor Omofaye. Honorable Victor Omofaye, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, viewers.
Okay, it looks like our engineers will advise one of our guests there. There's too much light on your face. There's a little bit dazzling. We can't see your features quite clearly. Well, let's begin with the guest that we have on Zoom. First, with the Commissioner of Environment in Kogi State, Honorable Victor Omofaye. Lokoja and indeed a number of other local government areas in Kogi were in the news when the flood waters first hit. What is the situation right now?
Well, we thank God the situation is getting improved by the day, and just like you rightly mentioned that we have about 10 local governments, affected by this flood, and we have the one in the metropole or the urban is Lokoja local government, while we have the remaining at various localities. Omala local government, and we have Adavi, we have Igalamela, Ida local government. These are the local governments that were affected.
We have actually lost, I guess, in local job. But we'll return to him because I know that our engineers will put hands on deck to enable us to recover that line. Okay, but let's also remain on Zoom, down to Bayelsa there. Bayelsa State is actually one of the states that the menace actually devastated so many local government areas. And of course, we would like to have an idea or a sense of what is happening that way. Well, of course, we have also lost him.
I think that we are expecting the Bayelsa State official to join us. It's also the Commissioner for Environment. But Delta, we understand, is still on in terms of the Zoom connection. That's Barrister Eugene Azuka, who is of the State Orientation Bureau from Asaba, Delta State. Barrister Uzum, are you there? Well, we understand that again you're off. So we'll come back to you, gentlemen, to get the latest reports as to the state of affairs in your various localities. We're back to the studios here. Well, let's bring in our Air Commodore Edward Kolawole Adedoko, who is Director of Search and Rescue of NEMA. How busy has your department been in the course of the flooding of this year?
The morning was small. NEMA as an agency has been very busy. Busy in terms of activities to sensitize the people. Indeed, when we got the advisory by way of predictions from NIMET and NISA, we got to work inviting experts from various NTAs, and then from the expert opinions, we were able to analyze the predictions from NIMET and NISA. They are the early warning agencies we have. And based on their predictions, we came up with implications for states and for various sectors in Nigeria. And this information were disseminated to the states and expected to also get to the local government areas. And then we have field workers who go around conducting advocacies to marketplaces, to communities, and also advising heads and leaders about clearing of drainages, of course, state authorities about desilting water channels, and of course, for those people that occupy floodplains, advices were given to them, and our people, we have, by the way, 17 zonal, territorial, and operational offices spread across the country, and we interface with the state authorities and the local government authorities, and then able to identify higher, safer grounds for those that may be inundated should the rain predicted and the flood predicted come their way. Those are some of the areas we have been busy. You asked about my department, Search and Rescue. What we have done, because we know over the years, these things will come. We have prepositioned specialized equipment. We have boats, inflatable boats, and then we have motorized boats. We also have some other equipment, specialized equipment like the rapid response vehicles. We have the ambulances. We're talking about search and rescue. We have also trained our people, recurrent training to enable them deploy promptly to areas that may require interventions. Let me also say at this point that NEMA does not work alone. NEMA is a coordinating agency. We coordinate resources, we coordinate manpowers, we coordinate and negotiate issues with relevant authorities and peoples. Among the people I want to say that have come very handy to us in recent times is the military. We have what we call the disaster response units. So we do have handshake meetings with them. I'm sure we know that the military is capable, they are widespread, and then some of the equipments come really handy.
Tell us how all of this, your preparedness, your equipment, your collaboration, tell tell our viewers how all of this have come into play, as because we have seen the various images from the flood impacted states and local government areas, and the fatalities now 612. How have this been useful in either mitigating the consequences or otherwise helping persons who were in distress?
Okay. Just before, as said by the speaker from Kogi State, just before the water level started receding, we got in touch with the Air Force because the connecting bridge around Lokoja, that's the Murtala Mohammed Bridge, was somewhat covered, and we had to invite the military to help create an alternative route, a bridge. The Army engineers has capacity to create such bridge. But just before their deployment, the water receded, the road cleared. Talking about Anambra, for instance, we had issues with people that were cut off, communities that were cut off. And of course, people that found themselves hanging on rooftops, on trees. So what we did was to engage with the Nigerian Army engineers in that jurisdiction through the Army General Officer Commanding 82 DIF. And then the Air Force was able to also bring in the Beechcraft aircraft for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. So they were able to comb the entire area from the air to be able to get a report, area perspective that the Army can use to deploy their boats to communities for necessary search and rescue and evacuation. That's for Anambra. Talking of Port Harcourt and the rivers and Bayelsa, the Air Force came handy for us because some of our relief trucks that we sent couldn't get to their destinations because of the same flood. What the Air Force did for us was to ask us to move those items. For instance, we got some trucks stuck at Uromi in Edo State. And so we asked them if we move these items to the Maritime Group. Air Maritime Group is a military and Air Force unit. Can the Air Force help lift those items to get to Bayelsa? What the Air Force did was to deploy a C-130 aircraft to lift those things to Port Harcourt. And from Port Harcourt, the Commander 91 Special Operations Group was able to arrange his helicopters to move these items from Port Harcourt to Bayelsa, Gogene. So these are some of the areas.
Yes, indeed. You have done a lot, from your explanations. But yes. I want to ask: are you overwhelmed in any way? In terms of your capacity at the moment, considering the volume of what has happened. Are you overwhelmed in any way in terms of materials, in terms of operational vehicles, the machinery, the helicopters you talked about? Because we're talking about 33 states of the federation, out of 36. And one is wondering whether NEMA has that capacity, like I said earlier, in terms of your operational machinery, and again, the number of persons deployed to do this, because of course many communities are affected. Yeah. Do you have volunteers? But one good thing that you said earlier on that I appreciate a great deal is the fact that you also embark on sensitization, right? Of the people ever before the flood came in. Yes. And I want us to now leverage on that to see what has happened, what was gained based on this sensitization. Did people take that sensitization seriously? How did the subnationals react? Your state branch of NEMA, the state own NEMA that which you liaise with, what did they do to mitigate this flood? Because if something was done on a serious note, perhaps we will not have as much as what we have now. So you're sensitizing the people. Did it go down well? Did the subnationals hearken to your advice, to see, look, what can we do before this flood came in?
Talking about the subnationals now, we'll be referring to the states and the local government. Yeah. In terms of disaster risk reduction governance generally, the federal, coordinated by NEMA. At the state level, we have what we call state emergency management agencies, the SEMAs. And then at the local government, we have what we call LEMCs, local emergency management committees. As to whether they heed the advice based on the predictions and then the analysis, the implications we sent across, I won't say categorically that they did not. I'm in touch day by day with some of the SEMAs. Indeed, we have a platform where we interact and challenge ourselves, areas that need, for instance, when we needed water purifiers to be able to bring potable waters to Jigawa State. We interfaced with the SEMA there, and we sent teams of trucks and personnel to Jigawa State. We did same to Kano, we did same to Kogi and Benue, and of course the SEMAs working with the ministries of environment or special duties, as case may be, received our people, guided them to communities where helps were needed, and they responded very well.
Okay. I did a follow-up, just of our viewers,
Yes.
to really understand whether that effort you made was in vain, or whether we'll go into some other specifics, when time comes. But the states you mentioned, those few states, we're talking about 33 of them.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Now, let's return to Kogi State. Well, we had a technical issue, when my colleague first asked you the first question. But please, you can continue from where you stopped. We want to appreciate what is happening now in Kogi State with respect to the level of devastation, what government is doing, and all of that.
Hello? Yes,
You can go ahead. Yes, go ahead. You can go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Like I said, we have about 10 local governments affected, and the government is proactive enough to ensure that we quickly carry out, even before the flooding. We have our activities in stages. We have ones before, during, and after. And so before it happens, we have activities like carrying out enough sensitization and creating awareness to our various local governments. Like my brother said earlier, we have SEMA, who is the state emergency agency, who equally, together with NEMA, we have been having this tripartite arrangement on how to get our people sensitized in Kogi State, which we have done, and we are now facing with the reality. And so what we quickly do is to create IDP camps in all the affected 10 local governments. Unfortunately, a local government like Ibaji now, who is totally underwater, we have Kogi Koto. In fact, majorly all these local governments are underwater as we speak. And so by the time you look at it, you now know that the level of devastation is so massive that it's not something Kogi alone, I would say, can probably tackle. And so that is where we are now. We have, like our officer earlier said, that we indeed receive the water purifier, in which we have deployed to all the camps to, because you know that presently the water might not be too good for consumption. And so we have deployed this water purifier to all our various camps, and we have committees. In fact, we have one who gives out medical care. In Kogi State, we have what we call Belo Care. Belo Care gives free medical treatments to all the citizens. And so in this case too, our team of medical experts have been going around all these IDP camps to ensure that they give out proper medical attentions. And so we do equally, we have our men from the environmental health officers who are equally on ground to ensure that there's proper sanitation management and equally provision of water and water. And so that's why we are able to get it right in Kogi State.
Well, thank you. So you got it right. Congratulations. But has the water level receded in parts of the locations that were previously submerged? I'm talking about Lokoja, for instance. Kogi is a junction state, and there were complaints, for instance, that a number of states higher up north, including the Federal Capital Territory, suffered fuel shortage supplies on account of disruptions arising from that. Is that highway passable now, and are other areas also becoming relatively passable?
Yes. Presently, as I speak with you, there's vehicular movements now across the state. Where we have the long jam, that's between Lokoja, Kutu, and Abuja, it's open now, and there's free vehicular movement. And in some of our local governments too, the water is getting receded gradually, and but not total, but it's gradual. Because what the measuring we have this year is as high as 13.4 meters, compared to what we had in 2012, which is just 12.8 meters. And so gradually the water is receding. And for now, there's vehicular movement.
Honorable Commissioner, I take Lokoja route most of the time. When I'm traveling to the east, so I understand the terrain of, especially Lokoja, for instance, right? And I used to see, maybe some years ago, flood walls along that Lokoja. If you pass through the local job, you have markets and all of that before you start heading to Abuja. I saw some flood walls, but stopped at a point. And the solidity of that wall, for me, it could be questionable, because I didn't see it as a wall that's actually meant to stop, overflowing river in the place. So when we talk about sensitization and mitigation before the flood, what has Each State government done in that respect? Because one, that he comes. In 2012, I was almost a victim of that, because I saw it, where I was crossing, and all of that. So now Kogi knows that this thing is almost perennial, and it happens year in year. What has the government done on solid basis, for people? Because when we talk about flood walls, it's not about sea walls as well. You can have flood gates, you can have levees, evacuation routes, and what have you. So what has this government done? Because now it's there. You're already suffering. You're already trying to save the people who are underwater. But something could have been done before now. So let us know what you have done, because next year, of course, we're going to have it again. Although we're not saying we should have it, but it's a natural phenomenon.
We know Kogi is always on the red alert, no doubt about that. But then the beach embankment, we call it beach embankment. That's what you are referring to. We call it beach embankment, and we are just done. We're almost done with the first phase. Where you are saying it is to stop water from overflowing to the roads, just as you have observed. And so we have it in section. We are just able to fill the first section is about 96 completion percentage, and we are moving to the second phase. If we can have it from that market area that you just referred to, then to hit, just to have it along the coastal line, then to hit Natako, we call it up Natako, it will definitely reduce this menace. But we started the first phase, we are about going into the second phase. So these are efforts government is making. And aside that, like I said, if not because of the enough awareness and sensitization that we had already given our people, honestly, the level of casualties, the rate of casualty will have even been more than that in Kogi State. But we tried as much as, like I said, we are at all time prepared, because we know Kogi will always experience this. Don't forget, Kogi State is a conflict state that has the coming together of the two rivers, Niger and Benue. But there are things we're supposed to, that's why we are crying on to the federal government, that if truly we want to mitigate this, we have to see how that river, both Niger and Benue, is being dredged. And aside that, we can have the small dams that can serve as a retaining wall, so that by the time the water is coming, it will stop at those dams, then gradually released. So these are mitigating ways that I felt could, if the federal government could look into that. And I'm glad when our president, Muhammadu Buhari, who gave the machine order and directive that they should quickly come up with a work plan within 90 days. I think it's a very good, it's a welcome idea, and I think if we can probably tap or make maximum opportunity of this, we might get it right.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We'll return to you later on in the course of the conversation. We have kept Associate Professor Ishaya Sunday here in the studios because we have direct access to him. Let's maximize, once again, the clear Zoom connection at this time to Asaba, where we earlier introduced Zoom Eugene, who is the DG of the State Orientation Agency. Azuka, if you are still there, well, just give us an update as to what is happening with regard to the floods in Delta State. I recall we had you a couple of weeks ago when we were discussing the issue of floods, and we said, look, Kogi at that time was already underwater. How prepared was Delta in taking the heat? And of course, we have seen reports as to the devastation being caused by the floods. What is the latest from Delta?
Yes, thank you very much. You can see that while we were talking in the course of this narrative, I've been multitasking, headed to one of the IDPs as routine. The level of devastation in Delta is quite high. High in the sense that, like you can see now, Kogi is receding, but Delta is getting a lot higher because it's coming this way now, emptying into Bayelsa ahead of the Atlantic Ocean. Here in Delta State, we have 12 IDP camps. And those 12 IDP camps, more may come because it's based on the needs assessment of the people. Like you asked a very critical question, what did the states do even before the flood came in? The word was sensitization, and still sensitization. It has been perennial happening since 2012. And so we always take the information to our people that the flood will come. And the flood is on its way. This is the level of the flood. This is where it is. And it actually came. So with that awareness, we are able to vitiate much of the damages that would have caused, especially in the area of loss of lives and properties. Delta State Government created, like I said, 12 IDP camps across 16 local governments that has been affected drastically. The 16 local governments spread across the 3 senatorial districts. And that of Delta South, especially the Patani Burutu axis, is worst hit. And the next is the Delta North, where you have the South local government of Okuanala, Okuamakom, Ewulu axis, is really underwater. And then we also have the part of Delta South too and Central, Ugili axis and Soko axis, really under the waters. So right there in the camp, the state government has been able to make adequate and sufficient provision, sufficient to the extent that we still need more, especially on the part of the federal government. In our IDP camps, we have presently well over 27,000 persons across board. In the various IDP camps, we have learning facilities supported by the Ministry of Education. We have power supported by the Ministry of Energy. We have the health facilities supported by Delta State Primary Healthcare Development Agency supported by the Ministry of Health. In fact, the state government set up an interministerial committee, which has actually been, it's an ad hoc body, but more now it's like a statutory body, to mitigate on these issues. And the term of reference is practically to create the needed IDPs, ensure that people are well taken care of, and at the same time, when the water recedes, are adequately demobilized back to their communities. The level of devastation, like I said, is quite high compared to even what happened in 2012. And there's been a lot of intervention, even beyond the state government. We have other philanthropic bodies coming to support the government. We have, most importantly, the Delta State Oil Mineral Producing Development Commission, the SOPADEC, that has commenced the desalting and clearing of canals and waterways across the senatorial district to ensure that the water flows out. We have Office of the First Lady, the O5 initiative, that has gone ahead to distribute food items and relief materials. Staying with the Sheriff, Oborowori, and Oyeme Campaign Organization, Damutek, and a whole lot supporting the process. But the critical thing, like I mentioned, is that when the water starts receding gradually in parts of Kogi Baby Trough, it gets rising here in Delta State.
And there's a particular question that is calling for answers that must be given the clear answer. The way the flood comes and how it comes, the matter it comes, the features, the way it comes, is not something any state government can say you're holding back. We must call it spade a spade and not a garden fork. For example, in Delta State, it flows from many angles, and the volume of water is not what any pavement is trying to say we can hold. The solution to this problem is the dredging of the River Niger, which I think will go a long way in ensuring that this perennial flooding is controlled. And then the construction of small dams across board. These dams, like we all know, is not something any state government or Kogi Delta or Benue or River Bayelsa state government will just embark on, because it's on the concurrent legislative list. It's an issue that will be debated between the state and the federal government, because it affects all the states. It's not something any state government will just be embarking on. Rather, what the state government does is to proactively get the people informed that the flood is coming, move people from the lowland areas in the coastal areas up to the highlands, even before the flood comes, making them to harvest the agricultural products, both in terms of crops and animals, and ensuring that adequate IDPs are built and the people are taken care of, and subsequently taken back to their various communities. This is the short-term solution. But when we talk about this long-term solution, it's not about the federal government deploying NEMA and other MDAs to come and support the state government, although not much of that has been seen here in our Delta State. But to immediately start talking with the states for the construction of these dams and the dredging of the various rivers, for example, the River Niger, because that is the long-term project that will stem the tide. A lot of persons, like I mentioned, well over 28,000 persons are in IDP camps, and over 500,000 persons are already displaced from their natural habitat, from their houses. It is there for everybody to see. It's cuts across the local government, and the devastation is still on. That is the situation in Delta State. But we are happy with the developments, because the state government sincerely has proactively done what it should.
Explanations, Eugene Azuka. We thank you so much. You know, part of our conversation this morning is all about even mitigation before now. What has your government done in the past in terms of mitigation? Because when in 4 months ago that the agencies responsible released the information that this is going to happen, and Delta State has been fingered as a state that will be flooded in this, in Nigeria. What did you do then? When you talk about dam and all of that, many state governments are linking international community in terms of development in their areas. You can do dam, it's on concurrent list. You can do it, and Delta is one of the richest states in this country. Now, what about the ecological fund? What are the state governments doing with that? If you don't have any erosion ecological problem, you can divert the fund into mitigation of flood. You knew the flood was going to come, and you did not do anything. From what I've explained, you are just trying to help and create an environment that will say, okay, you are working hard. But what did you do before now? That is the question. Because if something was done before now, perhaps it may be controlled to a reasonable extent as it were at the moment.
I'm sure that in the course of my explanation, there were some bits that maybe you didn't really capture. Let me put it in perspective for a better understanding. Before NEMET even came up with the forecast, Delta State has proactively started through the State Orientation Bureau, started a sensitization program. And this commenced even 2 months before the NEMAT forecast. This is because it has constantly been happening. And then Delta State government, through the Ministry of Environment, has been clearing the drains and carrying out the silting. Remember, you know that our state here is full of tributaries and waterways. Delta State government commenced immediate clearing of the drains and the silting of the various tributaries for easy flow of water. The state government has also gone ahead to earmark areas, highlands, where IDP camps could be built. We did not say that the flood came and we started building IDP camps. The Delta State government had already gone ahead to construct it, because from the forecast of 3,000 mm to 4,000 mm, we knew ab initio that the water level is going to be high. And it is even far higher than what we had in 2012. It is very, very clear that when we talk of construction of dams, especially to stem the tide, the dam that may support the process in Delta State will not be constructed in Delta State. That is why the federal government must be part of the process. The dam that is going to forestall the happenings in Kogi State may be in Niger State, because the water is flowing from a particular direction. And then the dredging of the river Niger ab initio has been an issue for constant cry for the states in the coastal areas. It has been something that everybody has been talking about, and not much of it has been seen. So pushing the blames back to the state at this point will be like trading the blames, because we all know that, for example, the Lego Dam that was constructed in 1977 and completed in 1982, there was a bilateral agreement, as we were made to understand, that the Nigerian government was supposed to construct some other dams.
All right. Barrister Uzum Eugene Azuka, thank you very much for your explanation. We'll return to you later on in the course of the conversation. Just before we bring in Associate Prof. Ishaya Sunday, you're going to have to take a question now. The point is coming on again about the desilting of the River Niger. That alone will not suffice. It is not just the desilting of the River. The desilting of River Niger had been done. It was called capital dredging. And the next thing to follow was maintenance dredging. Now, is the maintenance dredging being done? That's one question that we haven't had answered. What has also not been done is the dredging of River Benue. River Benue has not had the benefit of capital dredging. Now, when you do capital dredging, that's like the first dredging, and then maintenance, you say year on year, and so on and so forth. Plus, of course, the damming of the tributaries of the various rivers that feed into Niger and also feed into River Benue, because the experts have told us on Good Morning Nigeria that the waters of River Benue are more than the waters of River Niger, even though River Niger is much longer. Professor Ishaya Sunday, what do you make of what is happening to us this year?
To me, it's just a general attitude. It's just a general nonchalantness. And when you see people in charge of flood management talking sometimes, they tend not to even understand some basic issues. When you see them talking about management of flood, this water we see, this water that is causing problem, that is the major resources of Nigeria, but it's being mismanaged. And the idea of dredging, the capital dredging, the maintenance dredging, also you have to do it, you have to be calculative in your approach. This is not an issue you will do within a year, 2 years. It's like, it should be something Nigeria should to co-op into. Well, it should be one of the SDG goals for Nigeria. National project that will last for 20 years. This is resources mismanaged. In the next 4 months, go to Lokoja, you will not see water to drink. In the midst of resources of water, we are still suffering. Yes, construction of dams, yes. How will you construct the dam? Where will you construct the dams? It's not in Niger Delta. I've walked severally around dams within this. I've gone to about 7 dams in Nigeria in the southern part, and also in the west. Ishi Dam, dams that have been abandoned. Highly silted dams, forested by trees, they have no use again in the country. So we have to maintain those dams. So yes, the only way out of this crisis is to construct dams. And the dams, where are we going to construct the dams? Volume of the water comes from the Benue because of the major dam we have at the Niger that hold back this water. We have been running away from the Mambila hydropower dam. It will hold a lot of water. The area, the drainage basin where the Mambila Plateau is located is 3 times the size of Lagos State. It means that you can hold a lot of water there, then systematically you release the water in piecemeal. So we need dams. There is this place they call, I think, Soja, around EB local government. There was a time the federal government wanted constructing a dam to boost up the Kashibira Dam. That dam is not there. And if you observe around Wukari and EB local government, we also have incident of flooding in that river. That dam was to hold back water. So if we have to sit down very well again, look at the hydrological system of Nigeria. Look at the various rivers. Look at where do we have good geologies, where we can have micro dams. Then we control those dams. Then as the water is coming, we complain about the Lado dams. The minister kicks against it. It's one of the fundamental issues. We cannot kick against from that. It's just one of the issue, because the water come and it forces the water that is already in the drainage upstream and push the water down to Lokoja. Lokoja will always be flooded. All what they were doing, they are just cosmetic way of addressing this. What they have is not, it's just a fence, just a normal wall they just construct around the river in Lokoja, where you talked about earlier. It can't stop anything. That is not a serious embankment. It can't solve any serious problem. It can't mitigate. The mitigation would be basically, first, we have to check within our urban areas, how do we construct? In the whole of this area 11, area 10, area 3, virtually everywhere is being paved. It means that water runoff will increase. In FCT, we have a lot of estate developing. And in the master plan, you see people are not being cautious of how everywhere is paved. Even this compound, everywhere is paved. So water that's supposed to go underground will not go underground, it will flow on the surface. So we have several urban areas in local government headquarters, state headquarters like that. Those places are paved. So the brings and generate runoff in large quantity.
Okay, it's become a status symbol. Yes, it's become a status symbol. If you go to his compound, so everywhere paving stone.
All right. See, you're a professional in this area, and that's why I want to stay with you. You know, because there's flood in the US, there's flood in Europe, like there are floods elsewhere. You know, to an extent, you know, as climate change contributed to this. And on the mitigation aspect, you mentioned dams. It is very appalling, to honestly speaking, where many dams have been abandoned in this country. Sweden, with about 10 or 12 million people, have 2,000 functional dams. Right. So now in Nigeria, we have several dams. In fact, because I've done a documentary on dams in Nigeria, and come to picture, we have over 100 dams in this country, but not up to 10 are functional. Therefore, what we're saying is apt, you know, and germane to this conversation. Now, I want the subnationals to listen. I'm happy we have commissioners from other states and other who are listening to say when they say they are mitigating, the things they are doing in the name of mitigation does not change anything, you know, when the flood comes. So please open up more on what the subnationals should do now that the dam's construction is on the concurrent list. We have governors forum, and these governors are the leaders of the states where this flood we're talking about, you know, is a constituting menace. What have they been able to do to discuss? Look, we normally have yearly flooding as governors, and most of our states are affected. What can we do to do that? And if they do it and liaise with the federal government, they could have all these dams, you know, that the Azoka, you know, from Delta is talking about. So please open up more on the extent climate change has contributed to this. As to say, whether because you say it's an economic fortune that we are looking away from, how can we convert that to an economic fortune?
You see, sometimes when I listen to the discourse, I only just sit down and just laugh. You see, the ice cap is melting due to climate change. Do you know why the reason why the water will not go into the ocean? You see, if I have, let me use something so funny. If I have 5 bundles of 500,000 naira note in my pocket, I can't add more into it, right? So the ocean is already filled up. You can't take more. That is why the water will have to remain in Bayelsa, in Delta State, and in Rivers. It will remain there until when the volume of the ocean goes down, then the water will move in. First, it will accumulate in Lokoja. It will go to Bayelsa, then it moves in. So the volume of the ocean is already much. It's already filled up. The idea is this. It's the resources. Let me just take it bit by bit. First, you construct dams in places like Adamawa State, Borno State, Katsina State, Bauchi State. You hold back the water. You can keep this water till the month of April, May. When we need them. They'll be using it for irrigation. Use them for livestock arriving over there. And the last time I was in the studio, I said something. I said, we can as well, just the way we move crude oil from Niger Delta to Kaduna State, we can, you know, Chad are complaining of Lake Chad.
I raised this same point some time ago, Prof. Thank you. I said we are talking about recharging Lake Chad. I can see water how does a layman understand that?
Yes. In one of the World Water Day, I presented a paper and my argument was just consistent. Somebody said it's a multi-billionaire project. I say yes. Niger Republic, Chad Republic, Cameroon and Nigeria can come together. Lay a pipe, just the way we lay pipes from Bayelsa to take crude oil to Kaduna State. You will take the water from Kashibila Dam down to those at given levels. You release this water for irrigation. The so-called Sabisa forest, convert it to grazing reserve. That is all.
I'm happy you are supporting this point. I mean, from a professional point of view, it was just a layman's idea to say, look, we're having these flooding disasters every now and then. Is there no way you can trap it, because you have to go over cliffs and over mountain areas? And somebody, I remember on that occasion, somebody argued that water has to find its level. And I said, well, thanks. But I've also read, I'm not an engineer, yes. I've also read that in parts of the US, in parts of California, for instance, it is always said that water flows down. Yeah. But in parts of California, through hydrological engineering, water is flowing up.
Going up. You can move water up.
Why can't that be done? And this is not a question for Air Commodore. Well, Kiran. Kiran, all these ones that we are saying, this one, somebody's going to do, where are you going to get the money from? Where is the ecological fund? Some persons have already been jailed, on account of finagling with the ecological funds meant for their states. What could be more ecological than what we are saying now? Earlier, we said we were going to be joined by the Commissioner for Environment from Bayelsa. He's been on the road right there. You can see him on the screen. Honorable Isalema Baramburi. Baramburi is the Commissioner for Environment and Chairman Task Force on Flood Mitigation and Management of Bayelsa. Well, we have seen some very disturbing footage from Bayelsa. The homes and houses and businesses and farmlands have been flooded in Bayelsa. What is the latest from your state? Good morning. Good morning. We can hear you.
Yes, Bayelsa situation is very, very pathetic. The governor about a month ago. My name is Iselema Baramburi, the Honorable Commissioner for Environment, Bayelsa State. His Excellency the Governor, Senator Bayedri, being passionate about people and our environment, instituted a multi-dimensional committee, a task force on flood impact mitigation and management. It comprises the Minister of Environment, myself, the Commissioner for Works, Commissioner for Health, Special Duty Commissioners, even the SEMA, State Emergency Management Agency. We have the Red Cross and other line agencies and ministries that forms the committee. We started by going around the states to take census of affected and impacted communities. As at the time we firstly went round, it was over 300 communities. But now, in fact, we have lost count because more than 6 local governments, 6 governments are completely devastated, submerged, deeply submerged. And the other 2 local governments of Brass and Nebel, they are partially affected. Not all of it is affected. Where we are is that relief materials provided by the state government has been continually distributed to the local government areas, communities through subcommittees for using the central committee to deal with all such areas. We are still going around the state. The governor too have been to most of the local government areas through water because it's not drivable. They have also done an aerial one using an helicopter to go around the state on the spot assessment, and they are taking stock of the amount of damage. In fact, everything about the Bayelsa is incarcerated. Food crops, our homes, our ancestral homes have been lost to the flood. Properties of our residential homes have been lost to the flood. Nothing is left. We are also recorded not less than the ones will be able to record about 8 casualties have been recorded. I think Bayelsa's case is a worse because the east-west on both flanks, heading to the Port Harcourt and Warri, are cut off. So there is no way we can source for relief materials. What we did here in Bayelsa State is to buy at Lagos, buy at Port Harcourt. That of Port Harcourt, we have to take it through the river. Up till late night yesterday, we were offloading relief materials at the Osborne Lake camp where we have a jetty. Others are also lifted. The Navy, the Air Force came handy to support the state by providing helicopters to airlift and drop it for us at the helipad in the Dogany. Medical services are provided to the camps and so on. The governor has been very passionate and committed to the cause of Bayelsa. Our problems are numerous, but the state on its own has commenced a pilot scheme of building water barriers, concrete water barriers, in some states that we could test the workability of such projects. And it helped. But for the fact that the volume of water was much for those water barriers, at some communities, some areas were built, the water now came from behind the community. Of course, all our communities are littoral communities that are by the shoreline. So the constant erosion, coastal erosion, constant flooding are eating up the higher parts of our land. So once this magnitude of flood comes, everywhere is submerged.
All right, thank you indeed, Iselema Barambiri, Commissioner for Environment and Chairman Task Force on Flood Mitigation and Management. We thank you. We're going to come back to you after the break we're going to have, momentarily. But I just want to inform you that we are aware that Bayelsa is a rich oil state and Bayelsa is a riverine area. And it is known to you traditionally and culturally that we have lived in the underwater for a very long time. It is your natural terrain. And of course, when we talk about mitigation, Bayelsa should have been one of the states that should begin this mitigation right from the time that agencies concerned told Nigerians about these floods. We want to know what NDDC has even done in this direction. This flooding is perennial. This is not new, because we are talking as if maybe the flood came yesterday. We've known about it. It's been coming to Bayelsa. What has government been able to do over the years that we now have it now and everybody is running head together? Bayelsa is the worst hit and what have you. We will do that after this break.
It's still Good Morning Nigeria, the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, very quickly, let's return to Honorable Iselema Barambiri, who is the Commissioner for Environment in Bayelsa State. My colleague Kieran asked a question as to the preventive measures that your state government initiated on learning that, look, this disaster was coming. And more particularly, what help, if any, has come from an intervention agency like the NDDC?
Thank you very much. Firstly, the state government, through the ministry, has done a lot of climate mitigation by way of planting trees, because we know that trees does a lot of carbon sequestration, which is largely amounting to climate change. So a lot of tree planting have been engaged, communities and NGOs have been engaged in doing that. Beyond that, like I said earlier, flood barriers have commenced. The building of flood barriers in some communities has commenced. Also, the desilting of canals, to deepen the canals to accommodate more volume, larger volumes of water, so that it doesn't overflow its banks, have been on from time to time. That is what the ministry have been doing. The issues are that the river Niger, the river Focados, the river Non, and there are other larger tributaries are almost very shallow and to the brim. So a little flooding causes water to overflow its banks. These are the reasons why we are repeatedly, the state are repeatedly over time called on federal authorities, the federal government, for the dredging of the Niger Delta, the Niger River Niger, and the Focados and the Non rivers. So these rivers can now accommodate larger volumes of water. In the 70s, there were no problem. We only had that of 69, but from thereafter, at the flood was not this ravaging. But now we have no place that we call our home. Bayelsas are displaced. I think we are more deltaic than other deltas. Delta states in the Niger Delta. So we are the receiving end. Some communities like those of the Nebe and Brass that were not initially flooded, ravaged, are now being ravaged deeply because it has receded up there at Benue, and the volume of the water and weight is on Bayelsa, passing through, wanting to now move to the ocean. Then those by the ocean has to face the brunt. That is what we are passing through. We have lost our infrastructure. Everything has been lost. NDDC or the Niger Delta Ministry virtually has done nothing concerning flooding in our area.
Honorable Salama, thanks. I mean, that last point you made about the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs and the NDDC, it's significant because we're also talking about mitigation. What does NDDC have any relief supplies for your people at this time? Does Bayelsa also have an emergency management agency? With whom is Bayelsa liaising?
NDDC, I am the chairman of the committee. As I talk to you, some of the committee members are around the corner because we have to have an emergency meeting. So we could go out and then attend to the issues as they are on ground. We have not had one palliative, one single palliative from NDDC or the Niger Delta Ministry. We are aware Niger Delta Ministry called for a list of items we should submit to them for consideration, but we are yet to receive from them.
We didn't get much from you based on measures taken before now, but all the same, you are with the flood over there, and of course the government and people of Bayelsa State, we identify with you at this very period of time. But again, we have always said it, that government should also take governance very seriously as it concerns what could lead to this kind of a situation in Bayelsa State and other states of the country. Thank you indeed. Back to the studio here. Air Commodore Edward Collar, we listened to the people who are in areas that are adversely affected, and what would you say to their responses?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I think that subnationals in Nigeria have not fully understood the essence of this Sendai framework that emphasizes on the need to be more focused on disaster risk reduction. Those elements of preparedness that nations should do for national resilience. So at state level, it's like we are busy focusing on what relief items we are going to receive when these things happen. It's as if people wait for disasters to strike and expect government to bring relief. On the part of federal government, for instance, we are doing the relief, yes, but what are the states doing? In the wisdom of the professor, he was talking about dams. In FCT here, we have Jabilik. It's artificial. It's one of the things that the state or the FCT, management have done, not just, to cushion the effect of floods, but also they're using it to generate revenue. In fact, this Jabi Lake Mall is always strong with people because, almost like tourism from the same lake, electricity from the same lake, fisheries around the same lake. And one thing FCT did this year was to go around the entire capital territory to look at, those floodplains and channels that we have estates and structures there. They demolished them. So that's why we are not hearing of deaths or overwhelming flood in FCT. What are the states doing? States have partners, international partners. Exactly. They can pull in to assist in doing some of these dams we're talking about.
We also have access to ecological fund. Yes. We have said that before.
All right, sir. Let's begin a proper.
I think we can't overemphasize this. Look, it's like saying you have money in your bank, your roof is leaking, your POP or your ceiling is gone, your furniture is all soaked up, your documents are going. You say, don't worry, I have money in the bank. If you have, because the ecological funds are there, I don't know what quantum it is. What are we doing with such funds at this particular time? Clear.
Well, Prof, you always come from professional point of view, which is very pertinent to this conversation. And if the people concerned will listen and understand your concept or perspective, that will be better. Now,
I'm sorry. Just okay. Have we ever thought, or are we thinking big about how to deal with Nigeria's hydrological issues?
No, not at all. Because if you look at what Commodore was saying, I will just key into what he said earlier also. You see, we have to think about prevention, preparedness, building resilience within the environmental resilience. The people living in the community are resilient at day. Then you build their adaptive capacity. Those are 4 things. Is the government prepared? Do they have prevention mechanism? That is why I said it will be like a 20 years project. Yeah. And if you look at next year budget, if you I've not gone to go and check it, there is nothing that to do with construction of dam and trying to take care of that, apart from the ecological fund. But again, we also talked about this issue of the nonchalantness towards this flood management. The state themselves, particularly those in the north, we talk about construction of micro dams that will hold back this water. We talk about moving water to the Lake Chad. It can be from Cameroon. It can be from Chad. It can be from Niger to enhance Lake Chad. It will boost economic activities. And again, within the urban centers, there should be planning. There are several ways of which you can plan. Communities like Lokoja, virtually most of the settlement close to the riverbank need to be demolished, mapped, and before that, there should be mapping areas that are highly vulnerable to flood, and also less vulnerable to flood and not vulnerable to flood at all. That will also affect the way and manner you plan the society.
Should plan for permanent relocation.
They should also plan for permanent relocation. And when you are doing that, you'll be looking at elevation. Like this new census that we are about to take, there are several things we should be taking into consideration. For every house you are mapping, you are picking what is the location of the house, what is the material used to construct the house. Who are the people living in that house? During evacuation, during search and rescue, if there is somebody who is 70 years old, somebody who is 20 years, somebody is 30 years old, you will go for somebody who is 70 years old first before you come. If there are women in this company, you go for women. And those things, we are supposed to have those data bank, and we can get them using this our census. So you will know whenever there is flood, you know. For example, if there is flood in, let's say in FCT, I will just call somebody and ask, is your house flooded? I can tell you every other place in FCT that will be flooded. Because I've done a work on flood risk mapping in the FCT. I just did one recently of Kuba Town. We map out those areas. And those places that are vulnerable to flood, FCT have sold those areas to people who are staying there. People are constructing houses there. Estate land. People, somebody will go and buy land. When you go to your land, you see your land is within a river.
Trademore estate. It used to be. It's not been in the news this year. I think the FCT FEMA has worked on those areas. The houses that were built on the flood plains have been taken down.
But what worries me is this: in Abuja here, when it rains heavily, honestly speaking, area 8 is flooded. Area 8 down here, down the road here, it's flooded. The road itself is flooded, in front of the hospital, and then down to Guayampa. That one is known, down to Guayampa area. When it's raining, you cannot even enter Guayampa. When it's raining. So there are areas in Abuja that are flooded each time. Remember the man that lost his life with the children is in Guayampa area, and all of that, and the judge. There
was a director who swept away a couple of years ago, around Galadimawa.
Both of those areas are basically caused by clogged drains and poor construction of structures along drainages.
All right, gentlemen, we would like to appreciate all of you. We know that we cannot be blaming climate change when sometimes the solutions are right before us. Associate Professor Ishaya Sunday of the Department of Geography and Environmental Management, University of Abuja. Thank you for being our guest this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Via Zoom, we were joined by the DG of the Delta State Orientation Bureau. That's Zoom Azuka Eugene. Thank you. You're with us via Zoom. Another Zoom connection was the Commissioner for Environment of Kogi State, Victor Omofaye, and also the Commissioner for Environment of Bayelsa, Isalema Barambiri. Gentlemen, we appreciate you for being our guests on the program today. Here in the studios also, we had Air Commodore Edward Adedokun, Director Search and Rescue of NEMA. So that's it for our conversation on the ravaging floods in the states. A lot of work to do even after this year's floods. Thank you for being with us. Join us tomorrow same time, 7 in the morning. I'm Kingsley Osabalo.
And I'm Kirian. You might have a great day.